FYI, I'll cover this in a full story, but before we get into the stories, I want to mention, if you haven't heard, Trump got the virus. It's a pretty big deal, and I think pretty much everybody in the world probably knows about it at this point, but we're going to get into it in a little bit. I've been covering evangelical pastors who would do anything to show their support for Trump for months. These people seem to be convinced that Trump was literally sent by God to save America, but news has been slowly leaking from Trump's aides that he mocks religious believers behind closed doors. Surprised? Me either. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Republican leaders do. But the fawning level of support Trump receives from evangelical voters makes this particularly ironic and sad. An Atlantic article released recently, written by McKay Coppins, who talked about a number of people who know Trump or have worked with him over the years. Apparently, there's a prosperity preacher named Creflo Dollar who begged his congregation for $65 million for a private jet. Here's a quote from the Atlantic article. Trump seemed delighted by the scam. Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, recalled to me, and eager to highlight that the pastor was full of shit. They're all hustlers, Trump said. Here's another quote from the article. In private, many of Trump's comments about religion are marked by cynicism and contempt, according to people who've worked for him. Former aides told me that they've heard Trump ridicule conservative religious leaders, dismiss various faith groups with cartoonish stereotypes, and deride certain rites and doctrines held sacred by many of the Americans who constitute his base. Honestly, none of this surprises me. At all. Seriously. And if you're surprised by this, then I'm going to have to suggest you get your head out of your ass. This is why most of Trump's base likes him. Because he makes fun of people. That's his thing. Why would anybody think he doesn't do it to evangelicals too? Do you guys remember Kevin Sorbo? He played Hercules on the TV show from the 90s. And he also played an evil atheist in God's Not Dead. The evil atheist professor who tried to make all his students disavow their faith. As if any atheist would give a shit anyways. Middle. He gets hit by a car and accepts Jesus right before he dies. If it wasn't obvious by now, he's what I like to call a giga-Christian. Well, he's decided to make a movie with John Lennox, another giga-Christian and famed math magician. The name of the movie is Against the Tide, Finding God in an Age of Science. It's basically Kevin Sorbo pretending not to believe in God and John Lennox making one unsubstantiated claim after another. Here's a quote from the Christian Post. It's hitting theaters nationwide for one night only on November 19th. Despite the theatrical restrictions in the US, almost 600 theaters have signed up to screen the faith-based film. Awesome! As if we haven't had enough people breaking rules and putting people in danger. I would have thought people would learn their lesson with Trump getting sick, but I guess not. Oh, and don't worry, we'll be talking about Trump getting sick in a little bit. Pat Robertson held a prayer rally about a week ago, and for some reason, after all these years, he's still expecting results. In a recent video, he said, quote, I believe that what's happened out there on Saturday with all this prayer, I think God's going to hear it, and we're going to see a dramatic change in our society. I think the dictators of this world will be coming down. Isn't that funny? Last Saturday, they had a prayer rally to bring dictators down, I guess, and within the week, Trump gets the virus. That is the heart of coincidence. He goes on to say, I believe that we're looking at 4 or 5 years of really, it'll be like a paradise because the devil is going to be bound for time. I think disaster was on the way, coming into our society with antics and the radical group named Black Lives Matter and other groups like this that had communist influence. I think the Lord is going to put an end to it and we're going to see a period of blessing. Seriously? This dude is 90 years old and he still hasn't connected the dots that his prayers are answered at the same rate you'd expect if there was no God. But after saying God has a plan for the past 90 years, Pat must realize that either God isn't there, he isn't listening, or he can't answer your prayers because it would fuck up his divine plan. Right? This week on the podcast, Deanna Lorraine, a famous QAnon personality, is in the news for claiming the left might have given Trump the virus through his debate mic. She released a series of tweets about it the other day. She said, quote, I'm just going to say what we're all thinking. We're all thinking, apparently. Trump was fine until the debate, where they set up microphones and podiums for him. Incubation period is usually 2 to 3 days. I'm going to need a fact check on that, by the way. I don't think incubation is 2 to 3 days, necessarily. He tests positive a couple of days after after the debate, I put nothing past the left. Nothing. Here's another tweet from her. Look at them celebrating already. When he beats this, will you admit you were all wrong? This is a complicated subject. People tend to fall into one of two categories. The group of people who are happy at the prospect of Trump dying, and the group who don't want to see anybody die, no matter who it is. Personally, I don't want to see anybody die. I think that's the humanist position. Even if that person doesn't care about other people's lives. That doesn't mean I don't. Josh Feuerstein. If you guys have been in the atheist community on YouTube for a while, you'll know the name. The dude is a complete nutbag. He's a giga-Christian, Steven Anderson levels. He made the atheist YouTuber circuit a while back for some really stupid videos he put out. Well, he just announced the other day that he's starting a church in the Dallas, Texas area and wanted his Facebook followers to join. We're going to take a look at some of his older videos, and then we're going to take a look at his church announcement.